There's a concept I talk about a lot in my coaching sessions and stream, but I haven't talked about in its own video yet, and that is my concept of alarm bells. An alarm bell is something you notice in-game that you've conditioned yourself to notice when it happens, and respond to by shifting your attention to it immediately. To put it another way, it's something that you've learned is important enough to pay attention to, that when it happens, it jolts you out of whatever else you were thinking about and refocuses you on the more immediate threat. It's a tunnel vision prevention system. Let's talk for a second about how this works, because it's important to understand, and also because I minored in psychology in college, so basically I can read minds and I'm very cool and I want to show off. Psychological conditioning, more specifically what we call classical conditioning or Pavlovian conditioning, is a concept discovered by a researcher named Ivan Pavlov. Is that how it's actually pronounced in Russian? Almost certainly not, but I am a monolingual American asserting his God-given right to be wrong and not worry about it. Pavlov was studying digestion in dogs and was testing his hypothesis that when you put food in front of a dog, it would start salivating. What he found, however, moved the experiment from one field of science to another, because it turned out that the dogs would start salivating before the food was even put in front of them. They were recognizing something else that came first: the footsteps of Pavlov's assistant, who was walking toward the dogs with the food. Since the dogs had realized that those footsteps always come before food, the footsteps made them respond in the same way that they responded to food. Pavlov started messing with the routine for how the dogs were fed, and found that he could get the dogs to respond with the same salivation, and probably also happy dog things like tail wagging and getting excited, by doing all sorts of things, as long as he had spent some time pairing those things with food beforehand. He got them to respond to a ticking metronome or ringing a bell in the same way that they'd automatically respond to having a bowl of food put in front of them. This method of learning, identifying that two things are associated with each other and being able to use one to predict the other, is something we can take advantage of to learn the game better. If you never notice a booyah bomb coming toward you, you'll just get splatted by it. But if you learn to associate the sound cue of a booyah bomb and the player lifting up into the air as warnings that a booyah bomb is coming, you can train yourself to take the preemptive action you need to spot where it's being thrown and move out of the way, and that whole process can start before it's actually coming at you. There are a lot of different things in Splatoon that you can only really avoid if you're looking for early warning signs. You may not know there's someone lying in wait under a ledge for you because you can't see them, but if everything you can see under that ledge is painted the wrong color, and you know an enemy player has had time to get there without being contested by your team yet, those can all be alarm bells that interrupt your idea, I'm going to go over this ledge, with the thought, this isn't safe. Let's stop and paint from a safe distance over that ledge and look for more information. Some of these sorts of things start to happen naturally, but it's also easy to develop unsafe habits and never look for these warning signs because you habitually don't do so. This is why in my videos I try to point things out like what happens when you drop off a ledge into enemy ink, or that something in the enemy color that appears on the bottom corner of your screen is more important than whatever else you're thinking. There are so many stimuli, that is, things that you could notice, happening on screen all at once, that it takes experience to be able to filter out which ones are important to look at and which ones are just visual noise that will distract you from what really poses a threat to you. Part of the job of a coach is to help you focus on the more useful stimuli so you know to ignore the rest. But this is part of why it's also valuable for you to look over your own footage. Whenever something goes wrong, maybe you get splatted for example, if you review your replays, you have a much better chance to look for what warning signs there were and figure out patterns you can look for next time. If there's a particular position you keep getting flanked from, now you'll have a warning bell for, there are no teammates watching this angle, so I need to watch it myself every so often. If you find yourself running out of ink and engagements, you can develop a, I just threw a bomb so I'm almost out of ink alarm bell. A lot of people go wrong in that they're not looking far enough behind the play to be able to spot what they will be able to act on next time. They may look at a play and go, oh, well, that was dumb, I shouldn't have done that. But they never look for what would have warned them not to do that in the future, and so they keep making the same mistake. So make sure that when you look back at those replays, you're looking a good 5 to 10 seconds back, because sometimes that's how far back you commit yourself to a bad position and end up in trouble. The more you manage to automate this process of looking out at the screen and figuring out where the threats are, the faster you'll be able to start reacting to the game state, and the more effective you'll be for your team. Getting these warning systems to be as reflexive as possible will also free your brain up to think about more complex, advanced concepts, so it's not getting bogged down in second-to-second self-defense, and it's thinking about the long-term game plan and how you can best accomplish that through your positioning and other such choices.